I used to think marriage ended with a fight. Ours ended with a bank alert. It was a quiet Saturday morning. The coffee machine was running, and my wife Lillian was still in bed scrolling through her phone. I was checking my emails when the notification popped up. A transfer alert from our joint savings, $15,000 withdrawn. Not a bill payment, not an investment. Just gone. I froze. Lillian handled most of our finances. She said numbers stressed me out, and I'd trusted her with everything. She was smart, organized, and careful. That's what I told myself, for years. When I asked her about the transfer, she didn't even flinch. "Oh, it's for that project I told you about," she said, smiling. A small investment for a friend, but something in her tone felt off. Light, rehearsed, practiced. That night when she fell asleep, I opened our online banking. I saw more transfers. Small amounts spread across weeks going to the same account name, R. Odeon. I didn't know any R. Odeon. Curiosity turned into unease, unease into suspicion. I clicked through her phone's messages and saw nothing. No texts, no calls. She was careful, but what she didn't know was that bank accounts tell better stories than words ever do. I didn't sleep that night. I kept staring at the name, R. Odeon. It looked ordinary, harmless, but I knew there had to be a story behind it. The next morning, while Lillian was in the shower, I copied the account number from our bank app and ran it through an internal contact. I work in logistics and handle vendor payments, so tracing details wasn't difficult. A few calls later, I had my answer. The account belonged to a man named Raymond Odeon, 33, freelance fitness trainer. I laughed quietly to myself. Lillian hated gyms. I checked her social media. No likes, no comments, no signs of him. But people who lie learn to erase their footprints. 3 days later, I made an excuse to drop by her clinic after work. Her car wasn't there. When I called, she said she was still at the office finishing paperwork. I decided to take a detour. I drove to a small cafe she used to love before she said she was too busy for dates. Her car was parked outside. Inside, through the window, I saw her, smiling, her hand on Raymond's wrist as they talked over coffee. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. The way she looked at him told me everything I'd been too blind to see. When she got home that evening, she acted normal. Asked about dinner, complained about her day. She didn't even notice the silence in my eyes. That night, I checked the bank again. Another 20,000 transfer, same account, same pattern. It wasn't just emotional betrayal, it was financial. She was funding their fantasy with our hard-earned savings. That was the moment I stopped being a husband and started becoming a strategist. If she was investing in her lies, I would make sure it became the most expensive mistake of her life. When I realized it wasn't just a stolen moment, but money disappearing from our account week after week, the anger that first hit me turned into something colder, a clear-headed focus. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to make sure whatever came next I could survive without losing everything I'd worked for. First, I stopped alone and did the obvious things most people forget. When they're stunned, I took screenshots of every transaction, downloaded each bank statement and saved them to an encrypted folder on a thumb drive, and printed paper copies. Paper holds up in court in ways a memory doesn't. Then, I set up a small binder. Dates, amounts, account numbers, anything that could show a pattern. The list felt like a map of a life being taken apart. I called a friend who runs a small accounting firm and asked for help. Quietly, no questions asked. He recommended a forensic accountant and a family law attorney who handled messy separations without drama. I met both within 72 hours. The forensic accountant's job was simple: trace the money and show where it ended up. He did it the way I'd wired a complicated warehouse system, step by step, following the flow. Within a week, the paper trail was clear, small regular transfers into a single account, with occasional personal loan memos. The pattern left little room for plausible explanations. The lawyer's first advice was protection. She explained options I hadn't considered: how to legally shield personal assets, how to place temporary holds on joint accounts when there was evidence of dissipation, and how to prepare emergency filings so I didn't accidentally give anything away. We opened a separate account in my name and moved a portion of our savings there. Nothing secretive, all above board, documented and time-stamped so it would look reasonable in court. The difference between panic and prudence was paperwork you could show a judge. I also updated passwords and account recovery details on every shared service we had: email, cloud storage, investment portals. I set bank alerts so any large transfer would ping my phone immediately. I didn't hack her phone or dig into private messages. I wanted the truth the right way, through records and witnesses, not through a lie I could be accused of making. We hired a private investigator next. Not the flashy kind, someone discreet who worked public angles. Photos from outside cafes, receipts, timestamps from the places she'd been, and CCTV requests that could be legally obtained through proper channels. The PI's report filled in the gaps the bank statements couldn't. Dates and times she met Raymond, the pattern of their meetings, small gestures captured on camera that confirmed what the numbers suggested. I slid those photos into the binder, one by one, each image a quiet confirmation. All the while I kept living the life I had to from the outside. I smiled at dinner, I made plans with friends, I went to work. I told myself it wasn't cowardice, it was strategy. If she found out I was preparing for divorce while I had less than a paper trail and a trembling voice, she could move faster, empty accounts, or manufacture a story. I didn't give her that opening. When the dossier was complete, bank statements, the forensic accountant's report, the PI's timeline and photos, the lawyer sent a single formal letter to Raymond Odeon. It didn't accuse, it asked for an explanation and demanded return of funds that could be proven to belong to the joint household. The letter also informed him we had documentation and would pursue civil remedies if necessary. It was clinical and precise, and in the world I inhabited from that day forward, precision mattered more than drama. Finally, we prepared for the day I would go public with it, not to shame but to protect. The lawyer drafted emergency filings that would prevent rapid dissipation of assets, and the accountant prepared an initial valuation of our shared property. I made copies of everything and left one with my brother, one in a safe deposit box, and one with the lawyer. I wrote myself a short note to read when the moment came, what to say to my son, what to tell friends, what I would refuse to answer. It read like a script of dignity. There was one other thing I did that felt almost like ceremony. I photographed the kitchen table where the transfers were made, the chair where Lillian sat with her laptop, the small, ordinary things that had been part of our life. I wanted to remember the truth as it was, not as rage or melodrama, but as evidence. When everything was in place, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt leveled. The plan wasn't about revenge in the theatrical sense. It was about survival and consequence. If she chose someone else with our money, she would have to explain that choice to people who mattered, not in the heat of a fight, but under the cool light of documents and dates. And once the legal pieces were set, I did something I almost couldn't believe I would do. I prepared to leave quietly, not to run, but to step out of a life that had been quietly sold, and to go where I could breathe and rebuild, without the constant question of who I trusted. That quiet made all the difference. The papers went out on a Monday morning. I was at work when my lawyer called to say the courier had confirmed delivery. One envelope to Lillian at the house, another to Raymond at his gym. By noon, my phone began to vibrate nonstop. Calls, messages, everything. I didn't answer a single one. That evening I drove home not to pack, but to witness. She was there on the porch, the letter in her hand, face pale. When I parked, she said quietly, "You went through my accounts?" I didn't raise my voice. "No," I said. "You went through ours." She started crying, but it wasn't the kind of crying that comes from love lost. It was fear. Fear of what happens when a carefully built lie collapses. The legal process moved fast after that. Raymond vanished from her life the moment his wife's lawyer got involved. The clinic board opened an ethics inquiry. Clients pulled out of deals they had with him. Within weeks, his social media pages disappeared. Lillian tried to play both sides. Apologies one day, anger the next. She said I'd ruined her life, that I should have spoken to her before taking action. I told her I'd been speaking for years, she just hadn't been listening. By the end of that month, I'd moved into a small apartment downtown. I took almost nothing from the house, just my clothes, my laptop, and the binder. It was all I needed. The divorce took 6 months. It was civil on paper but hollow in spirit. The court ruled in my favor. I kept most of the assets, the house, and the car. She kept her salary account and the guilt she tried to bury beneath polite silence. When it was over, she called one last time. I answered this one. "I just want to know," she said quietly. "Was it worth it? All this ending?" I paused. "You already decided that when you started paying for another man's life." Then I ended the call, the same way I'd ended the marriage, clean, quiet, final. A year later, I no longer flinch when my phone pings with a bank alert. It just means business is steady. My small logistics company has grown. I have control over every account now. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the morning I saw that first notification, the one that started it all. Back then, I thought losing her would destroy me. Instead, it freed me. People say betrayal changes you. They're right. It teaches you the cost of blind trust and the value of quiet planning. Lillian once told me money couldn't buy happiness. Maybe she was right, but it sure paid for my peace, because in the end, she taught me one final truth: love without honesty is just another debt waiting to be collected.